Okay. Um, let's just wait for 2 minutes. Actually, sorry. They say like, please wait us. This technology thing is like.
Yeah.
I'm a social scientist. I'm just like um, a standard social scientist, and the reason why we are doing this, Tom, I'm following the U.S. as well. I'm following some educational issues that you've been facing now, like the Common Core and other stuff as well. But in Turkey, our main problem is that um, we have to diversify the the issues that we are discussing in Turkey on education, because education now is reduced to um, very few issues like centralized exams, standard exams, and also bureaucratic appointments and teachers being appointed to that school and this school. But the main crux of the problem is always missed, and it is learning and teaching. You know, people go to schools to learn. People go to schools to teach. The schools are not for teachers only for being appointed as a teacher and you know, getting a status as a teacher or a principal. So I think we are missing most of the problems in that context. But thanks for joining us again. I think we are all right. People say it's all right, and we are. I think we should carry on. And thanks for joining us. The reason why I invited you, is, of course, your big success with the hashtag #@chat. But I think #@chat is more than a hashtag, and I really would love to hear that story. And I really want Turkish educators becoming familiar with the #@chat and the philosophy behind it, why you established it, and how it was established, how it was launched, what was your motivation when you first decided to launch #@chat, and the story of it. I mean, but first of all, I said I would introduce you in Turkish, but I think you should say a couple of things about yourself. Who are you, Tom Whitby?
Who am I? Well, I'm a 40-year educator. I've spent 34 years as a secondary English teacher, and then my last 6 years I spent as an adjunct professor of education for a small college here on Long Island. So I've done 40 years in the classroom, and back in 2009, I actually started on Twitter. It goes a little bit before that. What happened was, in teaching in college, I really wanted to connect with educators who were using technology within their college classes, and there really were not a lot of them. But I wanted to be able to teach future teachers the best way to use technology within the classroom. So I, at the time, was on LinkedIn. I still am. I was on LinkedIn. And I started a group on LinkedIn called Technology Using Professors. And in this group, which is still active today, we've got about, I think it's probably about 12,000 professors worldwide involved with that group. We were having discussions, academic discussions, about how to get technology incorporated and integrated into our lessons. And that's when I started seeing all these tiny URLs in conversations. So I started asking people where they were getting these tiny URLs, bits of information, and everybody was saying they were getting it from Twitter. So I decided to examine what Twitter was. I signed up in 2009, and it immediately pulled me in. What Twitter was originally intended for was not what educators use it for. It was originally intended so people could be social and connect and do all kinds of stuff like that. But as educators, we need to exchange information. We need to exchange sites where content is contained. We need to exchange videos. We need to exchange ideas. And all of this was easily done in 140 characters on Twitter. So many educators were drawn into Twitter to use it for their, what we refer to as professional learning networks. So what happened was more and more teachers connected on Twitter, making that network of professionals to exchange ideas. And while I was on Twitter, I would usually start up conversations with people. I would start discussions with people. And we would involve 10 or 12 teachers having a discussion on whatever topic I would bring up. So I kind of thought this was a great thing to do, but it wasn't going out to enough people. If you were on the Twitter stream at the time, you got to participate and you got to see the discussion. But if you weren't, then you had no idea it was even going on. So I decided to come up with a time and a topic that people could join in together to discuss topics of education. And that's where EdChat came from. I was working at the time with Shelley Terrell, who was she was in Germany at the time, and Steve Anderson, who's Web 2.0 Classroom, at Web 2.0 Classroom. Steve Anderson was in North Carolina. So the three of us started talking about this. I came up with the idea. Shelley came up with the hashtag EdChat and set the whole thing up. Steve came up with the idea to come up with topics that we could put on a poll every week to find out the topics that people most wanted to talk about. So this was back in 2009 we did this, and we started it out at 7 o'clock New York time because that was a convenient time for me. And the very first EdChat, we had several hundred educators involved with it. After that, it was more and more educators week after week, and then we started getting tweets from educators in Europe who were staying up till all hours of the night to follow the EdChats. So they wanted us to start an earlier EdChat, and that's when we started one at noon time in New York, 12 o'clock p.m. in New York. So we had 2 EdChats going since 2009, and we've been doing it ever since. The only time we take off is Christmas and New Year's. Those are the only 2 weeks we take off, and we've been running 2 EdChats every single Tuesday since then. And taking it a step further, we got involved with a man by the name of Jerry Switek, and Jerry archives all of the EdChats. So if you want to see all of the chats, they're all up there on our page. We've got I could give that to you later. I can give you the link to that. It's an archive page with the EdChats for the last several years. But the other thing that we
carry on. Sorry. No, carry on.
Give me a question.
Oh, I was wondering because I think I bumped into a Canadian branch of EdChat. So there is a European branch, and it's not only the educators. I mean, of course, when you talk about Twitter, when you talk about EdChat, you can't just talk about it with a territorial framework. I mean, it can't be like, oh, EdChat is for the U.S., for the American educators. This is probably the silliest thing to talk about. But nevertheless, you have a Canadian branch, and you also set a European discussion for the European time zone, because of course there's a huge gap. Like it's 3 p.m. or 3:30 now in New York, Long Island, where you are joining us, and in Turkey it's now 10:30. So there's this 7-hour difference. But can you elaborate about this global network of EdChat followers?
Well, what happened as a result of EdChat, we were so successful and consistent. I think that's the thing that enabled this to happen, because we were there every single Tuesday, twice a day on Tuesdays. Because it was so consistent, people got an idea of what the chats were about. And they started forming their own chats. Right now, there are about 200 chats on Twitter that go on a weekly basis. EdChat was it wasn't, I don't know if it was the first, but it was certainly the most successful. And I think that consistency was the key to it. And also the global attraction, because we did make that shift so that we could include European educators. It did get a global community very quickly. And whenever we did an EdChat, we were a trending topic on Twitter, which was a big deal at the time, to be in the top 5 trending topics. So that was quite an accomplishment. But there are many, many chats now that are going on pretty much on a weekly basis. Some of them come and some of them go. Some of them go once a month, some go every week, some go every 2 weeks. But the whole idea of doing a Twitter chat is something that is very collaborative, and educators can connect in real time to exchange the very ideas and talk about the very topics that they need to be talking about, because collaboratively we all learn better than we do individually.
Tom, of course, social media means data. I mean, because several hundred people are joining your discussion every week. Maybe I read it somewhere, and it says at one point there were 7,000 people at one particular discussion session, let's say, and that's
I think there was
many. You know. Say it again. I couldn't hear it.
I think there was 7,000 tweets in a 1 hour session.
Okay,
I think there were 7,000 tweets in a 1 hour session.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, nevertheless, I think this provides a huge data, or regarding what people want to discuss, or what they think they have to discuss. So, what are the American education trends at the moment? What are you discussing in the U.S. regarding education?
The big topic is standardized testing. We also talk about social media and its effects on education. We talk about incorporating or integrating technology into education. There are many, many topics. One of the ways that we keep on top of this is to follow the Twitter stream, because on Twitter these are the topics that tend to be the most current topics, the ones that people are most concerned about. And in doing the chats, one of the things that we became very much aware of was that we needed to come up with topics that would appeal globally and not just to American educators. So the noon chat is the one where more of the global voice is heard, and then the 7 o'clock chat that we do in the evening is pretty much more Americanized. We've got a very large American audience at that point.
Mm-hmm. And at the very beginning, I said like there's EdChat success and there's a philosophy behind it, and you love using the term collaborative learning outside school buildings, or maybe that was the topic of the last discussion. But again, I see it as the main philosophy behind what we are trying to do with the EdChat and what we are trying to do in Turkey with EGT. Can you elaborate a bit about?
Well, when I was
collaborative.
Okay, when I was teaching in my English department, for instance, I taught in a high school, and there were 11 English teachers there. If I wanted to present a lesson on Shakespeare, I could go to my 11 colleagues and say, what's the best way for me to do this? And each of them would contribute an idea. But if I wanted to include some kind of technology in that presentation of Shakespeare, many of those people had no idea what they were talking about, because I was the person that they would come to. So at that point, I had nobody to turn to. You know, I had a network of 11 people, but they were not up and current, and they were not relevant in regard to what it was I wanted to do. I needed a way to get outside of that department, outside of my building, to get to people who have the same experience as me and beyond, so that they could help me. And that's one of the things that collaborative learning through technology enables us to do. We can get out of our buildings, we can get out of, in the United States, we can get out of our county, we can get out of our state, we can get out of our country, and we can go to global sources for the answers that we need. Many people on Twitter are connecting globally through, they make their connections on Twitter, and then they will Skype. They'll have their classes Skype each other. We've got classes from all over the world Skyping together, exchanging ideas about their culture and ideas about their education, ideas about learning. It's just, the technology enables us to collaboratively learn anytime, anywhere. just as we are doing right now. I'm sitting in my backyard in New York on Long Island talking to you in Turkey, and we're exchanging ideas about education. This is collaborative learning. Hopefully you will walk away from this with something to take with you, and I will walk away with it with my experience with Turkish educators.
Exactly. That is, I think, a vital, crucially important point. I mean, that you're making now. Tom, where are we going ahead? I mean, where are we heading to? Put it in other words. I mean, we're now using technology in many different ways. There are so many other things that educators all around the world are discussing, like gamification, like augmented reality, like flipped classroom, etc. And also, social media is also a very important aspect of what most teachers especially best performing school systems are doing now in the world. But where are we going ahead? I mean, what will happen in 10 years' time, in 15 years' time? Because of course, the main paranoia in Turkey, and I'm sure in other parts of the world as well, for teachers are that they're afraid of losing their physical teaching status in the classroom. They think that they will be replaced by other elements, maybe a hologram, maybe other things.
Well, but what they have to do is change the way they view themselves. Teachers, up until recently, have always been the deliverers of content. In order to be a teacher, you had to have all of the content in your head to deliver it to your students. That's how the students got the content. With our technology-driven societies today, that's no longer the case. We actually, if we are the content experts as a teacher, for myself, I limit my students if I'm the only person that they can get content from, because I only have a small capacity in my brain to hold that stuff in. If you compare my brain to what's available on the internet, there is no comparison. So what we as educators have to do is shift the way we are teaching things. So we're not teaching the content to the students, we're teaching them how to analyze content, how to gather content, how to create content. We're no longer going to be able to stand in front of the room and give information to kids, because this whole idea that they are empty vessels that we have to fill up with knowledge and content is crazy. What we have to do is shift the way we teach so that they become the learners, in that they're actually creating things. That's what much of this technology enables us to do. It enables us to gather materials and sources the way we've never been able to gather them before. It enables us to organize them in ways we've never been able to organize them before. And it's moved this whole idea of collaboration. We've always had collaboration in education, but it's always been face-to-face. The technology enables us to do collaboration beyond all boundaries and beyond all time. We can collaborate with anybody at any time. So that's something that has moved the idea of collaboration far up the ladder of higher order thinking skills. So we've got the ability to do this. We as educators have to shift what we do in order to teach the skills that our students need to become learners. You've got to realize that they have to leave us. And when they leave us, we're not there to give them any more information. So unless we've created a learner out of them, unless we've enabled them to become a learner, we're not doing our job. And the tools of learning have changed. The tools of learning have become the technology tools that we talk about all the time.
Tom, one of the concerns in Turkey is that technology is killing us, killing our children, and killing our youth. Killing in the sense, killing their emotional aspects and emotional elements, and of course there are some more community values that of course every single community has and we also have such kind of concerns in Turkey. So do you think that there should be a limit for technology in education? What is the limit for technology in education, you think?
I, I don't think as educators we get to make that decision anymore. One of the things that we have to remember is that we don't determine the technology. The technology is driving itself at this point. We can't expect to create 21st century learners in a 20th century model of education. We are in a culture that's driven by technology, and the technology is adapting at a pace that we cannot keep up with. We don't know the jobs that these kids are going to be having by the time they graduate, because these jobs are not in existence. If it takes a kid, you know, in America we go grades 1 through 12. Actually, there's kindergarten and then 1 through 12. In a 12-year span of time that we're educating kids, technology moves at such a rate that it's not going to look anything like it looks now 12 years down the line, or 4 years down the line. When you think about the iPad, for instance, the iPad has put education on its ear, and it's only been around for 3 years. I mean, we're just going into the 3rd year of the iPad now, and the whole idea of one-to-one learning using one-to-one laptops or one-to-one Chromebooks or any of the other iPads, any of the other technology devices that are out there, they're changing the entire look of education, because they're changing the look of the world, the culture. We can't hold our kids hostage to our time, because they'll be living in their time, and their time means that it's going to be a technology-driven society. So as educators, why would we limit what it is they need to know for their future? I don't understand that. There was a time where teachers could actually make that choice whether or not they wanted to incorporate. We can't make those choices any longer. And to say that if we limit technology from coming into education, we're creating an environment that is not in the real world. We're really stopping our students from learning through the tools that they need to learn. Does that answer your question? Or, you know, I hope that answers your question.
I really, yeah, that answers my question. Thank you very much. What are you discussing in the U.S. nowadays? I mean, I've been following that common core standards, you call it, I think, are now becoming a real problem for some states at least. What is common core? If you have to like summarize it in few words, and what is the main technology project or practice now in the U.S. in educational sector?
Those are two different questions. They're completely different questions. Well, Common Core is...
Two different questions, yeah.
Yeah.
Just to
Common Core is a way to it's an establishment of certain standards that all of the United States can say every 3rd grader has got this, every 4th grader has got this, every 5th grader has got that, and it goes across all 50 states theoretically. One of the problems with Common Core is that everybody wants to get their hand in the pot and make money out of it. You know, it becomes a political thing at this point. There are many private corporations that supply, let's say, you know, for standardized testing. Standardized testing has actually become a billion-dollar industry in the United States. Many educators are against standardized testing, both in their own philosophy and what they're trying to do with standardized testing, because it's become political. They're trying to use standardized testing to assess teachers. They're using standardized testing to assess schools, to determine who gets what money. So things become political. Whenever money's involved, and that right now is the big strife in education in America. There are arguments going back and forth as to what really needs to be done and who should be doing it, and what about the reform in education. There are politicians who feel that they know what's going on. There are business people who feel that they know what's going on. And then there are educators who are the last ones in the discussion, and they probably have the smallest voice, which is a shame. So that's Common Core. Now, the other question was?
Yes. Well, the other question is, if there is a big educational technology project running now in the US, whether or not there is a big educational technology project going on now in the US in one particular state or few states or nationwide?
There are a number of things going on altogether, because the whole idea of adopting technology in education in some schools is still being discussed. So there is a social media movement for social media in education. That's one thing that's being discussed. The idea of the flipped classroom is something else that's being discussed, how much the flipped classroom is improving learning. The idea of a one-to-one structure where every student in a school gets a laptop, every student and every teacher, and they work from their own laptops. It can also be done with Chromebooks. It can also be done with iPads. Then there's what's called the BYOD, is bring your own device. That's another big topic here, where students could bring their own devices to school and use the internet through the school in order to work on learning. So by bringing their own devices, it saves the school from having to pay for devices, and it also enables the students using their own devices to be also taking those devices home and learning more and more with their own device. These are all things that are going on at the same time. So that and the Common Core, working it into the Common Core. The other big issue is whether or not students should be allowed on the internet through school. Some schools actually ban students and teachers from actively engaging the internet while they're in school. Other schools do not. Other schools are completely open. And the other, in higher ed, we have what are called the MOOCs, which is the movement for open courses, where you can actually get online and take a college course with all the materials available to you for free. So these are all things that are going on right now in American education.
Tom, very final question, and this comes from our founder, Associate Professor Jamil Yücel, actually, and he's asking a practical question, and he says, what should teachers do to integrate technology into their classrooms? Probably he's asking this from a motivational point of view. So if you have to give 3 golden tips to teachers to integrate technology and types of technology that they can talk about, they can implement and practice in their classrooms, what should they do, and what should they refrain from?
One problem that many educators have is the whole idea of professional development, and that's a topic in itself that I could spend an hour and a half on. But too often, when it comes to integrating technology, we try to teach the teachers the bells and whistles of the application.